My grandparents. They could own a house, have a car, 3 kids, and save money for the future on one income. We now need 2 incomes to rent an apartment. This is because of inflation.
It's printed by the central bank in order to give it to the government, and then government spends that money.
Government decided to get into the business of food. We have had a skyrocket in chronic disease.
We'll give money to schools with low scores. Insofar as the school improves its education, the money is taken away.
Aid is not help. The fact of the matter is it very rarely reaches the needy. Hospitals would receive compensation for people to die, making all the data generated basically garbage.
The US government is not going to listen to the American people. They're just going to print the money, bomb people overseas, and fund both sides of this war.
If you have someone backing you whenever you do wrong, why would you avoid making mistakes in the future?
They don't care because they keep living their rich life.
Inflation is a major threat, completely out of our control. We are likely to have hyperinflation.
I'm basically working all the time.
You can't rent the house, buy the food, and the money you're working is too small.
It's like disappearing in front of your eyes.
It's so hard to find food, even if you have the money.
You get hungry, you see your children crying. Wouldn't that force you to just go and steal?
We are your future. Every money dies. It just needs time.
Boom, we are back. That's right, the most bullish podcast in the world, brought to you by Mr. All-In, aka the $1 Trillion Man. Young MBA is in the house. What's going on?
All good, boys, all good.
All good, all good. Okay, myself, Sir Neville, aka the Excellence of Execution, and you, the one that fails to change his name and helps me. So we've got Dr. Evil 10%, aka the People's Champ as well. I was looking at him to try and give him the eye to be like, you know what you're doing, right? This is the intro.
I don't know that you're looking at me, do I?
Well, I'm looking at you. You should just know. You should just know. Yeah,
I
we're
expect
I
expect Mr. All-In to change my name. That's what he does every week.
He changed my name before as well.
Yeah. It wasn't a young MBA though.
And as always, we cannot start the show without mentioning Mrs. No Show. Still, no show. So we've got a full house with a guest.
He's back.
What's going on?
Where's he been?
The last time I saw you guys, I think it was at the Bitcoin wedding, and I was covered in sick, and it wasn't my sick. It was my whatever Mr. All-In was providing us for dinner made all my kids spew everywhere, or it might have been the norovirus. I don't know. But yeah, that was a fun time. Halfway through my speech, can you remember? My wife was having to run each one to the bathroom.
Why not? They're not used to proper food, are they? Used to like chicken nuggets and chips every night.
Soy burgers, soy burgers, soy chicken tendies, veggie burgers,
beans on toast, more like on their birthdays they get cheese on it.
Oh, sweet. Vegan
cheese.
Diet.
It's good. I've come out of hibernation because I listen to your pod every Wednesday or whenever Mr. All-In can be asked putting it online when I'm driving around work and in between my different meetings and whatnot. And Dr. Evil, you called me out, and I had been on the pod since 33 because I did number 3.
33?
I think it was 33. I did 33. Oh, maybe I did 69. I did 69 actually. 333, okay. 69, and I was going to wait till 420, but it was too long to wait. So I thought, why not 131? I think it is, isn't it? Today?
Yeah, you're right.
So it's got a 3 in it.
Well, good to have you with us. And you have completed the MBA as well. So we called it to begin with, way before it was complete. But the dissertation, before we begin to jump into the agenda, the dissertation was on.
Yes. Yeah, we So with that story, it was quite funny. I had put the dissertation proposal forward, and I ticked but you had to tick what sort of bracket it goes in, and basically, in hindsight, it was if I ticked like operations or finance or innovation, maybe innovation would have been the word to have ticked for Bitcoin, and not finance, because what happened was I got a finance guru, supposedly, who had been studying what money is for the last like 30, 40 years. She's retired and still doing it as a professor of money. And the first thing she said to me is, because my dissertation was going to be called Bitcoin, is Bitcoin money? And she said, no, it's not. It's a figure of your imagination. This is a ridiculous title. I think you need to rethink it and go away and maybe resubmit for the next sort of semester. I'm like,
did you tell her to have fun staying poor?
No, I just said to her, yeah, you're only good at cleaning my boat. I'm not even my boat within my boat, my lifeboat.
My lifeboat with my boat within my boat.
So I thought, right, how on earth am I going to get with this? Because she goes, I've studied macroeconomics for the last 30 years. I've got X, Y, and Z papers. I know what I'm talking about, and money.
You should have asked her who her favorite economist is, and also whose economics theory she follows. She said, Keynes, you should get the fuck out of here, you stupid old hag.
So what I did was I just said to her, okay, can we reconvene, sort of thing, and can you send me the literature that you're basing your opinion on? To which then I did a pod with the Bitcoin bros to sort of go through all the literature, and it was all old stuff from 2017. So some of it was, it's kind of fair based on predictions of the volatility. Anyway, long story short, she come round to it, and she's now submitted it, and it's a Nobel Prize winner in Italy that runs the macroeconomics journal for finance. She submitted my idea to them. She's now completely ripped it off, and it's now being presented in Milan. So she's loving it. And she's done
about Bitcoin.
Bitcoin. So what we did was she ended up giving me, right, this is how it went from me having a ridiculous idea to then she put a whole research team in with me. I had about 6-7 meetings on site with a statistician, another guy who was specialized in crypto, which was a bit of a dodgy one because he kept banging on about Ethereum and Dink Donk and blah blah blah.
Shit.
And I was like, so anyway, it went well, and yeah, it was quite a crazy turnaround of events. And she did end up seeing, and I remember when I did one of these studies, I know you looked at Syneverlook, and it was basically showing how money and pensions and savings and stocks was further away from the money supply, the money divisia was further away than Bitcoin in this study that she had wanted me to do. And she shat her pants. I've never seen her go white. She was like, all my money's in stocks and shares.
I did say to you, send me this, and you've never sent me.
Did I never send it yet?
No, you didn't. Otherwise, I would have sent you like
you can't
ripped
read
it apart.
Yeah, I didn't think you could read yet. I did one dribble on it.
I'll put it into
This is
something.
why we have to help you spell your name every week.
What I'll do is I'll get something to read it out loud to me. I'm sure there's something which annotates it. Dictates it. But I suppose kind of going back to this, so you said that she's ripped it off and she's taken it off to Italy.
Now, to be fair, my name's on it and she has included me in any correspondence. So I'd be unfair saying she ripped it off, but she's taken the idea and run with it.
But I suppose looking at, even if she did rip you off, I think it's one of those ones, like it's an MBA, it had its purpose, which you did. And I think it's really interesting that someone who's so against, who was an economist, who was a Keynesian pretty much, has gone with the idea. So the question is she a Bitcoiner now?
No, so she said she still didn't get it. It was too complicated. But
it's too complicated, but she's telling you, but you didn't understand money.
Correct. So she started researching it though. And obviously I did what I did, and then she came back with a load of questions, and they were nothing to do with my dissertation. She wanted me to add things in for her journal for my dissertation. I was like, you do realize the word count is a bit tight? And she went, word count's just a number, like, don't worry about it.
Yeah, she wants.
I won't penalise.
But what grade did she give you in the end?
First, I got 74%.
Yeah,
I was one of the highest scorers on it. So
that was the number one thing you were worried about, wasn't it? Like, I remember when you were picking your dissertation, I was like, you got to do it on Bitcoin. Go and just do it, and it'd be amazing. But then it's always, even if you do the perfect paper, it might still fail because they're going to hate it and they fundamentally think that you're just buying a scam. But if you just do it properly, and with Bitcoin, you can't, it's just follow the data, follow the inflation, follow like the soundness of money, and measure it against the right things, Bitcoin comes out as a justifiable argument. People still may completely throw that in the bin because there's plenty of economists that clearly know that data and still think
well,
it's
a sunk cost fallacy, isn't it? So it's someone who pretty much has sold their life into whatever it is. It is sunk cost fallacy. So the one which I'm really interested in, she said there was a study around how Bitcoin is closer to the money supply than pensions and investments.
No, that's what I proved by its test. So basically, in effect, what we did was we had a basket of goods. So, you know, like how CPI works, or whatever it is.
Yep.
We did that, but you do in order
You mean
to make
CPI, the basket of goods, which they usually have on government subsidized goods.
ultimately, but this basket of goods was how Divisia M4 money's made. So M1 is transactional, M4 is sort of like where you put it for assets, so long-term sort of investment. It's where you call it a good store of wealth. So we looked at that because it definitely isn't transactional yet, as we know. Well, it is potentially around the world, obviously, but not in England anyway, or America. And it had things like the US dollar was in there, in savings, and then there was a whole host of them. Savings, I can't actually remember, it was a while since I did it, but we put Bitcoin in that and it was close. But interestingly, Ethereum I also put in there. The issue with Ethereum is it's got a shorter date because it wasn't full data, because it was
2015.
Right. 2015. So it actually married up quite a lot better, because the peaks and troughs of Ethereum actually are closer to inflation than the peaks and troughs of Bitcoin, because Bitcoin goes up and then it came down. So percentage wise, it was huge, but Ethereum's percentage in comparison to how the dollar was going on the line of best fit, it seemed like Ethereum was closer to the money supply. However, so she was loving that, going, no, it's not Bitcoin, it's Ethereum. But we know Ethereum's backed on bollocks. So.
The problem I had with all that analysis, right, I just skipped through that whole part of your paper. I think she loved it. Or this is just garbage, right? It's just based on price. You know,
of course,
Bitcoin may have gone like up to 100,000 last cycle. It might have gone down to 5. Does that invalidate it as money? Are they the credentials that I use to validate Bitcoin as sound money? No.
Well, that was the basis of my paper, though, wasn't it? It was.
Yeah, I know. I wanted you to go back to like, no, let's look at hash power.
We did though. I did.
Let's look at the supply. Let's look at, you know, all the issuance, and the fact that it's capped, and that's the problem as well. Once you start putting shitcoins on it, you go, well, if you put enough shitcoins on it based on their price chart, eventually you're going to find one that does model better, and then suddenly go, that's sound money. And it's like it's run by one guy in his bedroom. That is not good money. It's just got a good chart. It means nothing. The chart means nothing.
I'm confused. So we're saying that ETH isn't sound money.
So the main point was, though, that even if it was close to the money supply, that wasn't necessarily a positive, was it? Because we needed it to be further away from it, because the whole point of it was the money supply today is corrupt and broke. The new money supply was based on scarcity, transactional, and all that stuff, and a good storage of wealth. Whereas what we currently see is not like that; it's something that can't be inflated. But then I talked about deflation as well, and inflation, and how, you know, the downside to Bitcoin.
But don't Keynesians always say that deflation would break the economy?
Yeah, that's right.
But I suppose it's because of the amount of borrowing which Keynesian monetary theory encourages.
So imagine if deflation really happened and suddenly everyone's like life savings just suddenly started being worth like loads more. Oh yeah, everyone's going to be devastated, aren't they?
Oh well,
it's because of
I talk about stimulating the economy. All us guys, like suddenly our savings and all our boomer parents and stuff, suddenly their life savings double. What they're going to do? They're going to sit on it. They're going to go out and start buying cars, houses, holidays. That stimulates the economy. Not just printing money at the top. Like,
but it's also, I always think about this point. If someone from, I don't know, 1800 or whenever, when there's a gold standard, saw what was going on today, they would say, how the fuck did you let this happen?
It's laughable.
They would just go, how on earth is that currency? We know it's failed numerous times before when it's happened before. China, Rome. Why are you letting it happen now? And telling everyone it's okay and it's stimulating the economy. It's like, what have we said? We've had 2% growth from the UK, and this is the thing which really scares me. We've been saying, oh, we've had 1% growth through lockdowns, 2%, then 3% or whatever. And like steaks, literally gone up. It's doubled in price. And you're kind of going, if we've had growth off that much money printing, how much actual less is the economy worth in the UK now after 4 years? It must have sunk by bordering on 50%.
Yeah. And on top of that, if you went and got some of the 1800s, just not even leaving inflation out and just went, this is how much of my money I get to keep after taxes. They'd laugh in your face and go, well, you give the government 40% of your money.
Yeah, go and tell who is it, George Washington and all the other rebels, go, oh yeah, this is how much we get to keep. It's direct, we're getting taxed about 50 to 60%.
Yeah,
and
income tax wasn't even a thing back then. Like income tax is a new tax.
They had a riot about, what was it? Was it 4% on tea?
Yeah, well, I think that the big, like, the thing that the 1776, when the Americans fought off the British to get rid of us, and they claimed back America, that's their big, like, day of independence, July 4th. All that was over the British bringing a tax. It was between 2 and 4%.
Yeah, on tea.
Was that literally only on tea?
Yeah, it was on tea.
I thought it was on everything.
It's a Boston Tea Party, isn't it?
Oh, of course.
It is.
And that's why I was saying like 4% on tea, and it's just like they went absolute skits. And they're like, well, now you get taxed 50 to 60% on everything when you actually bundle all indirect.
Yeah, that's why it's always funny to Americans now, isn't it? Like, oh yeah, we fought off the British freedom. But yeah, you fought off the British for a 3% tax, and now you accepted a 60% tax on a different government.
But going on that, we got a 50, 60% already direct tax. Then on top of that, you got your indirect taxes. So everything which you buy from that 40% income, which you're actually allowed to keep. Everything has got VAT, it's got fuel duty, it's also got the people who you buy the product off, they're getting taxed to fucking, they got corporation tax, they got tax on their workers. And you kind of go, how much of money is actually going towards a product? Is it about 5-10% now?
Yeah. And then that's when you have to apply the inflation to the 5 or 10% that you actually get. I actually get to keep of my pay packet when it actually goes to the things I buy, about 10%. And I'm getting inflated by about 50% a year. You go,
but don't worry,
I have no money. I have no money.
Can you hear this? It's the sound of the economy being stimulated, isn't it?
The other thing as well, actually, I just remembered just whilst we were on the dissertation thing, the thing that actually made her click
we moved on.
was CBDCs. And so she saw the digital pound being put on the Bank of England website. And that was the scariest thing when I started researching into that and like China's social modeling and stuff like that. I couldn't believe actually how bad CBDCs were.
Okay.
And that's incredibly...
What? You're against helicopter payments and faster transactions? What's wrong with you? This will liberate the people. Yeah, I think it was telling when, what was it, Vimo? It was one of their execs said on camera, on tape, why the hell would people want this? There's no benefit to people. They can already do all these things already.
Yeah.
It's just a control. But yeah, really interesting actually reading your dissertation now you're on. So send it to me.
I will.
Because I think it's something which I need to read as a further level.
Yeah, sound.
It was nice that you didn't have to take an L on it, where you wrote a good paper and then still got a shitty mark because they didn't like the substance. They didn't like the story. Like the conclusion is, yes, Bitcoin is money and actually the best form of money. Because that is essentially what your conclusion is. But they let you submit that. It still gave you a distinction at an MBA level for that. So at least that it's good. But who knows how many people will start off their Bitcoin journey in that educational space through your paper now. Like, there's going to be probably hundreds of people who read that, and they'll probably dismiss it, and that's not going to orange pill them on their own. They'll read it and go, "What a load of bollocks!" But it's in their head now, isn't it?
Yeah,
they'll see something and then they bounce off it, and maybe they come back and read your paper again, and eventually hit the Bitcoin standard because you referenced all those books as well. Like, where's this idiot getting all this stuff? Let's have a look in the references. What's the Bitcoin standard book? Let's click that, and boof. Now they're going to get properly orange pill now.
But it's also, if you think back, like Mr. All-In trying to orange pill the rest of the 4B's back in 2016, we're like, fuck off, go and play with your magic internet money, you cunt.
I just kept seeing his bank roll going up, and I was like, I want in on this. I don't care about the background. I just want to know. I want that number going up.
But I think there must have been some kind of like seeds planted at that point. It's just I never reference them in my head when I think about it.
Oh, without a doubt, Mr. All-In would have absolutely seeded that. So, like, and it made you actually open your eyes. Like that's, and I was a massive skeptic against. I think COVID helped me genuinely see the light when they started trying to sack me because I wasn't giving my arm for. Yeah. So yeah, and that's when I realised actually there's a lot of corruptness, and then you start looking around and you think Mr. Tin Hat actually had a bit of knowledge in there.
You're right, COVID out at the beginning.
Yeah, should we move away because we've talked about lockdowns and COVIDs, and it's just
you're going to better news on the first story of the week because I reckon the main reason why you're on tonight is why you were so excited last night. It's because Bitcoin's just pumping. Where Bitcoin hit 50K.
Can we start sending the songs and the memes out to friends and family yet?
No,
is it that time, or we got to wait for it to go past the all-time high?
Yeah, you have to wait because otherwise, I think young MBA's already experienced this. Like you send out a couple of messages going, "Oh yeah, Bitcoin's pumping," all you'll get back is still down, isn't it?
Yeah.
And when by down they mean it's not all-time high, and anything below all-time high for any normie that you've bought in. That's all they care about. They'll still say it's down. Even though it's come back from 15K all the way up to 50K, they'll say it's not 69 though, is it? 69 to peak.
The thing is as well, have you noticed if you go on the chart, I think this is brilliant, right? So if you go on all time, it's like a straight line all the way through. Forget the peaks and troughs. If you go over a week, it's like massively high. If you go over like 3 years, then you show it going down and back up. It's completely time preferenced. And if you go, I showed Mr. All-In the other day about some stocks and shares from a company that when you look in the last year, it's like a nice steady going up. It looks quite positive. Step back and compare it directly to the Bitcoin curve. Bitcoin's going, and then this one's gone literally polar opposite. But again, it's all about Bitcoin.
It's all about I think, I don't think you can because that might be an actual sound stock.
No, it's not. That's the point. It is a very sound business, but I've got a family member that is.
It's not a sound stock. It's a dead company. It's a zombie company.
It's massive though, isn't it? The infrastructure in Britain.
You mean like zombie companies where they just grow with inflation every year?
Oh right. Well, no, to be fair, actually, no, we can say a company. It's BT.
It's BT.
Right?
Yeah.
So this guy had all his shares in BT for the last 30 years, something, didn't he? Yeah. So the last 20 did great, and then the last 10, and I remember talking to him. He's like, "Look, like one of the biggest incomes that BT get is a phone line. I remember paying that bill, and
they're going to be fucked, aren't they?
Why the hell am I paying a phone line? And the second that phone line isn't needed to get broadband, BT are dead.
Yeah.
Then that happened. You can now have Wi-Fi without the line fee.
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't have a phone line in my house now. I didn't have it. I didn't have it in my.
Ironically, I've got BT internet. I've got a fiber to the door. It's not a phone line.
Yeah, you just get it through fiber.
Why the hell am I paying for a landline?
Yeah,
by the missus.
It literally, I call it's another stupidity tax now. Like that's
stupidity tax.
So BT is congratulations. So you're paying a stupidity tax right there because you haven't done a little bit of googling. That's £17 a month you could just save.
Yeah, I have to look at that. Sort that out.
And obviously, once you see a company lose that, right, they're making £17 a month off, what is it, 25, 30 million properties in the UK? Once that type of money just goes to zero and you actually have to provide a proper service on top, there's no way they make that money back. Essentially, that company is going to go through a massive bust, and then maybe it will blossom out again. But do not ride it all the way down, like sell out. And we were telling him, buy Bitcoin. He had like significant six-figure sums in this share because he used to work there for so long. And we're like, look, at the very least, at least exit out of the company. And this was 2016, 2017, like exit out of the company, basically 8 years ago. At least exit out of that, get into cash and get used to it, and then maybe start DCAing back into Bitcoin. He bought a little bit, didn't he? And he's one of the people that's now going, oh, it's not all-time high. He's not happy. But it's ironic that Bitcoin's probably about 15% off all-time high. His BT shares are 75% down from when he bought them. And he's like, it's going to come back. I'm still hovering.
5x'd is Bitcoin stack. Or not Bitcoin stack, but the fiat behind the stack. but then in the shares, but the thing is, I think it's a common thing as well. A lot of people,
the price was 7K.
Yeah, 7K. Yeah. So, and what he can't get over is the price when it was at all-time high for BT was X, and that's his stack that he needs to get back to before he's broken even. Whereas it's the wrong mindset.
We were talking about it before, sunk cost fallacy again. You know, like I've been very guilty of this.
Well, it's the opposite way around this one, though, isn't it? It's actually I suppose it is, but it's price anchoring to all-time high. Like whenever your net wealth or a share hits an all-time high, you suddenly then go, I am never selling below that point now. Like that is what that thing is worth. And I'm selling it for a discount. Why would I ever do that? And you go, no, that price is gone. Today's price is this price. Do you think that's a fair value for the thing you have? Based on everything you know today, not the fact that during the freaking pandemic and everyone had free money, was getting 80% of their salary and locked indoors all day. So everyone was buying shares, everyone was buying fucking Bitcoin. So obviously everything went to the moon. Nothing is back to those types of highs.
Yeah, and we're getting close. But funnily enough, yesterday, my father-in-law came across a story about, I can't remember who it was. He got someone famous who got told off for talking about all the wins which he had through crypto. You know, he's said as being irresponsible because ultimately it's gambling. I can't remember who the person was. It's someone who I should know the name of, but I don't.
This is a great anecdote, this is.
Yeah, but anyway, he said to me, have you still got your Bitcoin? I'm like, yeah. I've got a fucking Bitcoin posters all over my office now. What do you expect?
Did your dad secretly not even know? You don't talk about it to that extent.
No, this is my father-in-law. Like, he asks me every so often. And, you know, he's got a Bitcoin poster right behind me. I mean, one on the floor, which I still haven't put up. And he's just like, have you still got your Bitcoin? I was like, yes. And he's just like, how's it doing? I'm like, about 40% up or a bit more since I bought it. And he's just like, oh, have you ever thought about selling some? And I was just like, no. What am I going to buy with it?
More Bitcoin.
Yeah, more Bitcoin. But his is about, you know, getting me initial investment and then just having a profit on top. But I'm like, well, okay, I take that, you know, money, the original investment. What do I do with it? Because you're looking at like, what's a sound investment? What do I know as much about as I do with Bitcoin? And what this other investment, is there a guarantee that the principles will not change around that investment?
Yeah, well, in the day as well, it's once you understand Bitcoin, the problem is what other investment can ride out the inevitable collapse of the typical or the traditional financial market? And unfortunately, the answer is nothing. You know, this is Mike Burry's betting against the housing market, and unfortunately, you have to put the bet on. He had to put the bet on at the bank. So he had to get them to put 4 billion to one side to go, I want that. For when you fail, you have to pay me out of that pot. Because he knew once his bet was true, there's no one to pay out. Everyone's bust. And that's the issue you have once you understand Bitcoin. Like any other bet.
I think
there's probably plenty of companies that might well ride all this out. But where are you going to put your money in to back that company? You're going to put it into a bank via a stockbroker, and then you're going to buy that share. Even if that share goes to the moon, are they going to let you sell it? Are they going to let you take it out? Are they going to tax you the same as they would now? The chances are, if the collapse happens that we think is going to happen, they're going to steal everything in all those accounts to try and keep that ship afloat when they're right at the 11th hour. So if you don't hold your money outside of that system, it's doomed, right? So once you're outside of the system, unfortunately, there's Bitcoin, and the only other thing, weirdly, is crypto land. And as we know, all those things are just gambling, shitcoin casinos. So I don't think you're holding any of your money in those. So it's Bitcoin, only Bitcoin. There is no second bet.
Even without a collapse, I think you're really looking at two kind of investments. You're looking at property and you're looking at gold, so a commodity as such. And that's where Bitcoin kind of fits and is a different commodity. But then, you know, the question is with gold, how much, if gold is worth X, how much gold is available in the world, and how much gold will be available next year?
I was thinking about this though previously. and I looked at it. So the gold market is 12.25 trillion, and you've got X amount of gold bugs who are effectively dying off because people our age aren't necessarily buying gold, they're buying Bitcoin or undoubtedly crypto. They're not thinking go gold first. And those that are in gold are already watching or should be watching what's going on in the world of Bitcoin and seeing the fact that it's going up quicker and faster, and for the last decade outperformed it for every year going. So essentially the parity will come, but the parity will come a lot quicker because they'll be selling off the gold to jump into Bitcoin, and then as that happens more and more, it just tumbles down.
I think I just can't get over the fact that if you look into a gold mining company or gold related one, their reserves go up every year above 2-3%. That is why I cannot get my head around. And property, I think property is quite a sound investment, but then we're hitting that point. Like if you look at countries like Canada, where it's unsustainable for property prices to shoot up that much, and we're starting to hit that point in the UK because we've had frozen wages for so long.
It's not even house prices anymore. It's mortgage payments.
Mortgages.
It's interesting.
I had a phone call from my mortgage advisor, and they cocked up and they couldn't read, so they thought I had a 2-year contract, not a 5-year one, which I'm on. They phoned me up saying, "Oh, just to let you know, Mr. Young MBA, you've got your mortgage is up in June." I was like, "Is it? Can you check your file? I'm pretty certain it's 2027." And they were like, "Okay, I'll check and I'll call you back." They never called back. So I don't know why that was the case, whether or not they wanted me to change my mortgage and they were just like chancing their hand.
They literally just take all ones with close ones and go, "Oh, you can get a lower, so you can get a lower percentage, but you got to pay a setup fee."
Yeah.
So literally, they want their quick money before the end of the financial year. So literally, they just thought you were a fish in a barrel to take their grand off to put on their sales target.
And it was unbelievable because, like, if I was to do it, I just did a quick, when you can do it on the calculator, it would have gone up about $1,000 from what I'm paying now for exactly the same
$1,000 a month.
Yeah, more from like 800 to 18, all because it would be on 6.something%, and that's like unbelievable, isn't it?
The difference from 2% to 6%, isn't it?
That's right. Yeah,
that's what's going to bankrupt people.
Of course it will. I would even struggle on that.
If we put this into Keynesian economics, the market has got too hot, so we must cool it down. So the market, whether you believe it or not, has come from money printing, or it's down to population wanting too much. And so to cool it down may increase the interest rates, which means that your mortgage payments go up, so people stop spending. And you kind of go, how is that sound economics and a sound way to run like an economy, a population, by going, "Oh yeah, we'll increase your mortgage payments and make it unaffordable for you to run your own home"?
Doesn't it go back to, though, they don't want anyone to own jack shit, and they just want you to rent and live in the rat race forever? And like I only heard the other day, I know you obviously spoke about it, I think last week, 71 is going to be the state pension in so many years. That's a load of bollocks, isn't it? And then they're changing pension age.
How the hell can you opt out? I want to opt out my state pension.
Yeah.
I don't want to pay into it. I don't want to pay into anything at the moment. I'm just like going, fucking prefer to pay it privately.
Yeah, I don't think you can stop national insurance, can you? Unless
but it's all these things. If this was a private company, you go, I'm not paying for my pension. I'm not paying for local council. I'm not paying for the NHS. I'm not paying for school. I'm going to do everything myself privately because I think I'd actually get a better bill.
Yeah. I keep getting letters from them going, "Oh, you need to pay
stamp duty, stamp." Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well,
you just need to sign on. You do.
I have to pay the stamp duty, but
why don't you pay someone to go and sign on for you?
Insurance one. They're like, you haven't been contributing to national insurance for like 5 years. You're eligible for a state pension now, so you need to pay this to make it up and stuff. I just screw up and throw it in the bin and just laugh.
Well, you talked about my situation in my new company where I opted out before I started, then they opted me in month 2. I opted out again, they told me off, and they opted me back in month just gone. So anyway, I've reclaimed it all, And then I got an email, I think it was last week last week, saying, do you know if you die, your wife won't get, your salary times 3, however it is. I'm like, delete. I don't plan to
caveat into the contract that you must.
Why is that tied to your pension?
So God knows. So if you're in the pension and then you die in service, then your other half gets 2.5 times your yearly salary as a one-off payment. That's in the NHS as well. But it's tied into the pension. I didn't realize it was so tied in, but I was like, I'm pretty certain my wife.
I didn't know there was this loophole.
Can you pay £1 a month to get that one benefit?
I don't plan to die.
That one benefit sounds quite good. If the worst happened, but
exactly.
You don't want to pay in like 10, 15.
So I played this out in my head. So if I keep putting that like 400 in to my pension every month, or do the DCA with that 400, I reckon she'll be better off.
Here's one: if you don't want to pay into your pension, you can pay for life insurance. It's probably
I've got that as well. Yeah, I've got life insurance. That's right.
All right.
Yeah. But the free 2.5K, sorry, not 2.5K, the free 2.5 salary is fantastic in the event that it happens, which we don't want, of course, but it's one of those things where
why would you put a bounty on your head?
Yeah, exactly.
I'm worth more dead.
Yeah.
Dangerous game.
Yeah. I've watched too many true crime.
Is she watching this episode?
No, she won't be. Do you know the other thing as well? They made.
It's all right. I'll text her. Don't worry.
Do you know? I had to tell them that she agrees to it as well. Now that's weird, isn't it? They say, "Does your other half know about this decision?" And you're meant to get them to sign it, but it was electronic signature. That's crazy, isn't it? Right? Because it's my decision.
It's a racket. That's why they make so much money.
Yeah.
Trying to coerce you into doing it.
I was literally looking at our parents' pension things today, and so there's an amount of money that we took out 2 years ago, just tracked the market and bought a bit of Bitcoin. That is
so is this your standard S&P?
Yeah, it's just it's an S&P tracker basically. Yeah, plus a little bit of Bitcoin in there. That's up 50 to 60% overall on that thing. Pension was up 7%, and I can guarantee that pension is in the same S&P tracker. So what's happening there is you have made 50 or 60%, or but to be fair, it won't be as much because they do just put it into property and bonds and all that kind of stuff, which is largely either stayed the same or gone down. So there's a good 30 to 40% profit that should be in there. It is not reflected. So they have that money. They just lie and just give you a small percentage of it.
No, what they'll do in the actual pension is if you actually look into it, like go 20% emerging markets, 40% bonds, so obviously the shit coins, and then it'll be 30% large market cap, which will be your S&P. So like it'll basically balance, like the bonds will be making like 3% or something. Then you got the emerging markets, which may have gone negative, especially how they're affected over the last few years. Yeah. So it's
bizarre.
They'll be taking 0.5% here, there, and everywhere. They'll be taking percentage points because we don't take it directly off your account, but they'll take it when it goes into the individual funds as well.
It could just be admin fee.
It doesn't make sense, right? Like looking at it, the percentages are largely just tracking the market. Yeah, they break it into loads of different things. They try and make it confusing. But I look at that and just go, right, everything is up right now. Everything is booming. So these should be really doing well. And our classic market tracker is up 50% now. So is this up anywhere near that? No, it's 40% down on that. So you go, that is wrong, right? Something is up with this. Like there's no way that is only up 7% in 2 years. There's no way. And it's and when to figure it out, you would have to look into each individual trade, all the little 1-2% that they're taking, all their fees, because all you get is the final balance. And there's all that, the inner workings, all the gubbins is gone. And oh my God, like pensions, they are a money-making machine for those pension fund managers. Jesus Christ, because I tried to think like, oh, by doing this like this, and like talking it through with our parents, like literally today, going, can you see now? No, we took out 10%, that grew 50%, we left 90% in, and it only grew 7%. That's demonstrable, right? here it is. If you get treated like a child when you have a pension and you just get a monthly allowance, or just take the collateral, pay a tax hit, but then start managing the money yourself, you'll very quickly get ahead, and then you don't have to take the allowance that they tell you. You can take whatever allowance you want. This is right, yeah? They just look blank faces like, nah, I think we'll leave it in. It's like, okay.
Yeah. One thing which I need to do is I need to start managing my actual pension money, because it's still sitting in the company pension, but once again, move it to a SIP, you know, for whatever you've got, and actually just manage it yourself, because you're not paying all the fees. Because at the moment, I'm getting fuck all growth out of it, and I just need to grow a pair of balls and actually do it myself. But it's all that kind of like disconnect yourself from the matrix.
Yeah, it's nuts. Like the amount of money you're losing is insane. Anyway, should we go back to the fucking story number one? Because it's about a fucking hour in. But like basically, there's we're talking about the pump in Bitcoin, and there was
the overlap has nothing on us. You know what?
There was 332 Bitcoin bought on Coinbase, a single buy order. It's a massive freaking god candle sitting there in Coinbase in the order book. And a few moments later, 331, so there's one less, ended in the Bitwise Bitcoin ETF. So coincidence, this tweeter doesn't think so. So here we are. It's this and obviously Bitwise are the guys that we can track their wallet, which is why these types of tweets can happen, because we can track their wallet, look for these large deposits, and then go, let's have a look on the order books. And obviously we know they buy on Coinbase. So these things, it isn't a coincidence. Like these things are almost certainly one-to-one. So it's kind of categorical proof, really, that the ETF is buying relatively significant Bitcoin and looks like it's doing pretty well for the price.
It hasn't really taken off yet. I think we've got to acknowledge that the ETF isn't pumping. It's not in the news. It's nowhere. People aren't recommending left, right, and centre. This is still early days.
This is our niche corner of the internet.
Yeah, I saw a tweet. It was probably 2 days ago about the DCAing in the ETFs are. So they're doing something like 500 million a day or so. Which when
you think they're building it up a surplus?
Yeah. So some guy's done some calculations. Again, I ain't done the time to verify it, but it sounded reasonable. And they were saying like the 500 mil on the market cap would then equate to about 500 quid a day. And if you go back over the last few days, like probably the last week, generally you're seeing about 500 quid. Obviously, it's going up and down because of people buying extra and selling when they get to whatever. But you can see it's going up, even though there's noise. So potentially, if you see about 500 quid a day, then that would make sense to the DCA of the ETFs. And I think that sounds like quite it's good. I think it's solid, because what I was talking to Mr. Orlean last night about that. I was like, if you go straight up, you come straight back down. We've seen it before, but it's like proper sort of slowly.
You're building a new base, aren't you?
It is. It's a new foundation. So you generally look at it and you think, well, maybe this is now the solid platform. It's going to struggle to break through it because it's solid.
It's before like the base was what 20 something, whereas it turned out to be I suppose 13 when everyone got scared and ran away, but it was still better than the $3,000, which was what 4 years previous. So we're up 10 grand, and so it's like, what's new foundation going to be when we have when everyone panics again, when we have some dips? Will it be like?
But I was going to say, that's why in reality, when you reach out to people that you've tried to orange pill and they bought some Bitcoin and they reply negatively saying, it's still down. As shitty as that is, that's good news, because that means we're not anywhere near the top. When those people are messaging you with Bitcoin advice and trying to tell you what's about to happen on Bitcoin, oh fuck! Now that's the top.
Get your boat.
People are not bullish on Bitcoin at all. If anything, they are still bearish. They're bearish, and Bitcoin's at 40k. Or
also, as well, we've talked about this, is when people that may have been persuaded but then didn't get in, let's say it was at 26 and now it's 35, 36, 37 and so forth. And they're like, okay, right. Well, then it's like, it's too late. I've missed it, and they don't have that, that ability to then flex and it's just like, oh, I'm done.
That they'll buy it 100k instead.
Yeah.
When there's a 10k dildo, they buy in the house.
Ironically, they'll whatever the top is, that will be when they collapse. That will be when they go, finally, I get it. I believe. And whenever they finally pull the trigger at 250, 300k, congrats, you just bought the top. It's down only here for 3 years.
4-year winter.
Yeah, you need to start up a podcast and get more bullish while everything's going to shit and everyone's telling you you're a fucking idiot.
See, again, I'm not digging up the past and going into dissertation, but I did do a little model on.
Oh, here we go again. It's only been on there half an hour.
It generally happened. The halving happened, and it was about 6 months later you would see the proper bull. And interestingly, we always say Bitcoin doesn't follow the rules and it will do what the hell it wants. Like this time we're seeing you changed my name. What a bastard. What we've seen this time is it's going up so the halving, obviously the excitement of halving is going to be in May. What are we going to see then? Is it going to completely change the rules?
What you're missing, what you're talking about, is you always see kind of like the tail flick up before the halving. So you're talking about 6 months after the halving, but if you actually look for the year before the halving, you do see the tail up. So it's typically the year 3 before the cycle when it hits its bottom, and then the 4th year is when you start to see it flick up, which is what we're at now. And obviously we're bearing down in May, which is when the expected halving is going to happen. And then you're going to see little bits, but then the typical is after 6 months to a year, you're going to see the action happen where it absolutely flies up. But it's not going to follow it because the fact is, models get broken every time.
Yeah. The thing is, though, you talk about that flick. I think you talked about that previously, and I was in my car and I was abusing you, saying I disagree with you completely. And I really wish I was here to talk about
it. Because I don't really care what you say.
Because I look back on the curve. I don't believe there is a tiny little blip, but I don't believe it's as significant as this. We're almost at the old cycle's all-time high, which we've never been that close to in any other cycle. Normally it's a little bit, but you're still like 12. Well, normally like 3 grand and 12 grand. So you're talking maybe a sixth of what it was before. It's interesting.
Yeah,
it'd be interesting to see in a year's time.
It depends which cycle.
I think we're different though. But when you come to look at the cycle, the complete cycle on the next one, it'll make more sense because obviously we're seeing a tail, but because you've got other moms and dads and so on investing now. You've got all the openness to the ETFs, and I think this is so much different. But it also pisses me off saying all that. I shouldn't be getting excited about price because it's letting BlackRock in.
Yeah, I know. But fuck it.
All we can hope is that a load of people realize that Bitcoin's a great asset to buy, and once they realize why, they'll buy some on BlackRock to begin with, and then hopefully get further orange pilled and realize that was a very bad decision. Sell that BlackRock ETF, buy it on an exchange and take custody. That's what we hope. Also, we know that buying on exchanges and stuff is getting harder and harder. We've got stories towards the end coming up around exactly that. But
and also, can I put an admission in? Before you guys start talking about BlackRock and Vanguard, and this is really bad to say, I had no idea what they were. And I'm relatively clued up in this. So you think the world is going to be even less clued up than me necessarily? Then they're not going to have a clue. I thought BlackRock was bloody the local beach in Wales.
Well, if you think about it, everyone knows Vanguard because of the ETFs, whereas BlackRock sit behind everything. And you don't realize you're in BlackRock because they just fucking own everything.
Yeah, it wasn't until you guys talked about it. I was like, wow, that's exciting then. But if I didn't know about it, and just you, because you guys dig deep into this sort of stuff, the world has no clue about it. So the ETF what's an ETF? I talk to people. Have you heard the ETF's been accepted? They're like, eh.
Yeah, I know. Well, the only reason why it's not really retail that would be right. It's all the pension funds and all the hedge fund managers. They know who BlackRock is.
Yes,
and they know BlackRock and Vanguard, and that's where all the trillions of dollars, because all the idiots that pay into these pensions and freaking financial investor funds, they don't know what they're doing. They don't know where that money's put.
I took that one personally.
If you fall into that group, then you should take it personally. So they're the guys that they will not invest in any asset unless it has an ETF, and unless it has a big name on it. So Bitcoin now has an ETF and it has the BlackRock name on it. So suddenly that is tens of trillions of dollars that now has access to that fund, where it was impossible. Even if that pension fund wanted to make a 1% allocation into Bitcoin, they couldn't do it before. So now they can, and no one's going to get fired for putting a 1% allocation of a pension fund into a BlackRock ETF.
Well, you know what I've been advising, it should be 10%.
So out of interest then, would you say then, by the fact that BlackRock and the pensions are going to be backed by Bitcoin, does that make it a bit more of a full circle to pensions being more solid?
Yeah, to be fair,
it's
yeah.
basically to keep you from getting completely wrecked.
But your problem is, but Bitcoin makes, I don't know, 120% increase. What's the admin fee? What's the trading fee? What's the percentage share going to whoever's
trading? It won't go to zero though.
Yeah,
like
it won't go to zero.
It won't go to zero.
You're going to see increases, but you know, like anyone who's listening, don't buy into an ETF, or if you do, and because you're so excited by it, but then research it. You know, buy the Bitcoin Standard, buy a few books, read, just look at, even on Twitter, follow a few people like Saifedean, Hard Money You Can't Fuck With, what are the ones where you got around money? Sorry?
Rooster.
Links to buy.
Thanks, Abby.
Tom BTC.
What I'd also worry though is just access. You know, we've seen how you know, the rules can change. So yes, the ETF can stop you from getting wrecked, obviously from a pensions perspective, because fiat will obviously always go to zero. But I think that's got to be thought of. There'll be a, oh yeah, you can have your money now, but then there's this 50% admin charge that for us holding the Bitcoin for all of this time. So what you thought you were getting, you're not actually getting.
Yeah, just play out the scenario in your head, right? So Bitcoin's hit hyperinflation, or hyper-Bitcoinization's happened, right? Fiat's gone crazy. The entire financial system has collapsed. The only thing that is stable on the entire financial system now is the Bitcoin ETF. It's sat in like a dozen different ETFs. So they are all completely bankrupt, yet these 10 ETFs have just completely gone to the moon. Do you think the powers that be will let little plebs like us take their money out of that system whilst everyone else is wrecked? Like, come on.
Yeah, I've tried to.
Yeah.
Come on.
I've tried to take it somehow.
They will finesse you. They will tell you that they need to reinvest this money. There's a one-off tax to fight climate change, to fight the Chinese, to fight the Russians. Like, they'll have a legitimate reason. There'll be a deadly pandemic happening. There will be something, and they won't say they're stealing it. They will say it's for the greater good. And everyone else, and the problem is 98% of people will not be invested in this ETF. So they will go, well,
that makes sense.
2% suffer and don't get all their gains, and we benefit the 98%. That sounds good. And the population freaking agree to these things, and it happens all the time. So it's not like, if the system was fair, then yeah, that ETF would work. The problem is the system is not fair; it's corrupt. So even when you make your gains, you're not going to need to have access to them.
My query was, if they're going to not let you have custody of your own Bitcoin and basically want it to be caught into the central government pot and give you your IOUs, how will it work with like ETFs? Will they have to submit all their Bitcoin and let custody over to the government?
Well, that'll follow some infosec rules where it has to be kept in a certain way, blah, blah, blah. So it have to go, oh yeah, Bitcoin's kept here, it's kept on a government exchange. It can only be added to, it can, when it's sold.
BlackRock government backed though, it's not, is it?
No, I'm saying as in they'll come up with rules where they have to store the Bitcoin so no one can steal it.
BlackRock don't hold their own Bitcoin. It's held at Coinbase.
Oh,
so they make
Coinbase is essentially a government exchange. It's the US government own Coinbase now. Unofficially.
Oh yeah.
Regulated them so hard that we know, just as like Elon exposed at Twitter, they have their hands all over that company, and they've basically gone, comply to this, this, and this, and you can survive and flourish and make a shit ton of money, and we'll give you free path, and we'll block other entrance to this market.
Yeah, so
but
he started going
you
for.
need to agree to these things, which
They
is
went for, what's his name? Is it Brian?
yeah, Brian Armstrong, yeah.
Yeah, they went for him, and he was really bolshy with his statements, and
Yeah,
it just
now
suddenly
he's-
went. It suddenly went away, didn't it?
Yeah, now he's a little pussy, and people like me are getting their accounts banned from Coinbase, no explanation. I go, who's doing this? Clearly, it's they're blocking.
Equally, I think it may have been a little bit of them trying to get him on side when he said, oh, well, I'll take it away from the US and I'll go offshore. So, they.
I think they just went over regulation, they got him where they wanted, so now they got access. He's probably got a cheaper tax bill, but they've got access.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
And so just as you said, like it's like with the gold standard, you had to hand in all your Bitcoin and give it to the banks over 1 ounce of gold. Our equivalent of the banks now are these exchanges, and these are government kind of co-opted exchanges, Coinbase being probably the main one. And that's where they're holding the ETF money, right? So they're almost going, do we even need to send out the confiscation notices? Because we've got a couple of outliers. There's a couple of million outliers that are existing. Provided they just kind of grow up and die off and don't cause too much trouble, maybe we'll leave them. But we've stemmed the flow of the money. It's all now flowing in to a government co-opted account. We can do with that what we want. We can print more. We can confiscate it. We can tax it. It's controllable. All the key properties of Bitcoin don't exist in the ETF. So it's just literally just pegged to the price. That's the only similarity to it. Everything else is different. So I think they're trying to do a gold confiscation without doing the confiscation. Just going, well, people just freely give their fiat and think they're buying Bitcoin over here. And really, we own it 100%. We can do whatever we want with it. And that's all we care about, right? So when the end happens and fiat collapses, if Bitcoin does take over, well, we own 98% of the Bitcoin that people want to use. So it's all sat here. We can now just reallocate it how we want. We'll just ditch all this, create a CBDC off the back of it or something bollocks. I'm sure that's one of their strategies.
But it's a classic session as 9/10 of the law, isn't it?
I think we're holding a record for being on the first story, aren't we?
It's not. Yeah,
I think this is me. I'm going to push us on to the second one. So this is what is it, Marty Bent article about bank runs? They're so hot right now.
It's good to see them back. They've been gone for about a year, and then they printed a load of money to save them, didn't they? Bailed a load of banks.
Yep.
And now there's a load of banks back down between 11.
So did I read it? But it was like an emergency fund. What do they call it? BTFP. And they started dishing that out again, but the banks took it and invested in higher yield returns rather than just using it to actually save themselves. That's what I took from the article. I went, fucking hell.
Yeah, well, banks just gambling it and YOLOing it, knowing that if the bet doesn't pay off, they get bailed out anyway.
Yeah, but this was a bailout fund. They gambled and YOLOed the bailout fund.
Yeah, bank term funding program.
When have they not done that? Like,
yeah, but it's not even the original money. It's a bailout money. This is like, you're fucked if you don't sort this money. They're like, oh, red or black, red or black, black.
I know they gambled that money in. Well, they lost all the money in 2008, didn't they? And then ever since then, it's been bailout money, and they've been YOLOing it over and over. And it's basically come back to bite them again. So they're getting bailed out again. And guess what they do? They YOLO that money.
Yeah, but it's hilarious that when you don't think of it, you're thinking, oh, the money's gone into infrastructure. It's putting into like sound investments such as bonds. But like, lol, look what I'm going to do with this one. I'm going to try and 20x it.
I went
like,
all
what
in
are you going to put it into?
But they'll never learn because it's never their money and there's no repercussions.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also there's always more money, as they know. It's infinite.
Yeah.
We YOLO'd all in on rubble double-ender dildos. Apparently they're all the rage. And then no one bought them. They're like, we lost all your money again.
But they're so hot right now.
It's all right. Can we have some more? course you can. What's your bet on
It's
this
like,
time?
it's like, but we don't have any more. And it's like, pull out the hat. We got even more.
Let's just put inflation up a little bit. Here it is. Yeah, it's just, this is the thing, right? And we discussed this a year ago because we thought the collapse might be happening about a year ago when a number of US banks went under. They're all the small banks. It's like the domino effect. Once the small banks go down, loads of debt doesn't get paid to the medium-sized banks, so they go down, and then those debts don't get paid to the big 5 banks in America, and eventually that's the whole thing gone, right? But they stem the flow of that by just printing a shit ton of money, creating huge inflation, and just gave it to those small banks to stop them going under. But guess what? A year later, the same thing's happening again.
I think going back to just in case anyone's listening who didn't at the time, I think we talked about a lovely thread on LinkedIn, didn't we? Which you were answering you helping someone out, a concerned citizen, who said, no, this is not backed by the UK government. You're like, well, I can't remember what the wording was, but it's a technicality, so it looked like it wasn't a bailout, didn't it?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I can't
and it was HSBC, but then he went, and you're like, everyone knows it's a bailout because the share prices reacted accordingly. And then he copy and pasted a graph which was going from right to left instead of left to right. Said, look, see, like, you can't read a graph, can you? One of my favorite posts. Made me laugh. I don't think I could like it because we were kind of trolling someone. I've got to be professional on LinkedIn.
The thing is that if you, to try and like steel man the other side of this argument, to go, oh no, this is fine, it's just insane, right? It's the banks are clearly in a bad way. They're nearly all insolvent. They don't have the assets. If people take out their money,
well, it's fractional reserves, isn't it? It's
they're
the fractional reserves where we do. I think it's 1 to 20 in the US, and I think it's 1 to 8 in the UK, if I remember correctly, /EU. Yeah. So they don't have the money. They don't have a fraction. So literally, if 20% of any of these banks get the money taken out of them, they're fucked. And we saw it with who was it? Oh, the Rock one years ago in the UK, where
Northern Rock.
Northern Rock.
I know
where literally 20% of their patrons took out the money and it collapsed the bank.
Yeah, we would like on a Bitcoin standard. If we have banks, it will be like the Bitcoin ETF. You have to prove you are back 1 to 1. The second any bank goes fractional, they're instantly now insolvent, right? Anything happens in the market where people get scared and people take out their money, they can't fulfill all the withdrawals. They are.
But it's also using loans to create money as well as part of it. And I'm sitting there going, well, this is part of the fractional reserves, I think, is when you take a loan, then they get the money, because then if that money's stuck with someone, it also means it doesn't stimulate the economy. And I read an article about this somewhere. I just sat there kind of going, the person who's written this is having to jump through hoops in order to make it sound normal. And you just read it and go, this is absolutely ludicrous that it's actually allowed to happen. Yeah. But it's taken a year, which is quite an achievement by the banks, because I think they probably got told to calm the fuck down by the Fed and everyone else. And then a year later, they're like, everything seems to be fine. It's like, I'm going to 20x this shit on some Austrian double-ended dildos. Watch me. Do you think it's safe? Yes. Great. I'm in on butt plugs.
Talking about butt plugs, should we move on?
Valentine's.
Should we move on to Obama?
What you mean?
I've got a year's supply waiting from Amazon. They got delivered to the neighbour and they never sent them round, bastards.
You might get some. Might be used though.
Beautiful.
The next one is the newest advert released by Satoshi, and it's lit. Do we want to play it?
Yeah, well, I'm going to try and play it in here and just see if you can hear it.
The question we now have to ask is if technologically,
can you hear that? Yeah.
It is possible to make an impenetrable device or system where the encryption is so strong that there's no key, there's no door at all. What mechanisms do we have available to even do simple things like tax enforcement. Because if in fact you can't track that at all, government can't get in, then everybody's walking around with a Swiss bank account in their pocket. The question we now
So here's a question.
Did you all get a semi? That's the question.
Well, no, that as well, but can adverts win Oscars? I mean, that is a hell of an advert for Bitcoin, but it's so wrong on so many levels, isn't it? It's kind of like, what gives a government the right to privacy, but take away your privacy? So I can't go into the government to dig around their bank account to find out what's been happening, what's being siphoned out, but they can come into my bank account to make sure that I haven't sold a sofa for over, well, if there's in the US, over $600 on Vimo. So they can check that transaction, but I can't go in and find out where the fuck all that money's gone and where all that money to Ukraine's really gone.
I just love the fact that he's kind of leaning back on his chair, being like typical Obama, and being like, oh, isn't this so dangerous for someone to have a Swiss bank account in their pocket and the government couldn't tax them? Isn't that the worst thing ever, right, guys? Right? And you just
it goes back
like,
to the Tea Party, doesn't it? It's
yeah,
like,
well,
look at this.
If you're saying it to the WEF audience, they're all going to go, oh, absolutely, we need to stop that. If you're going to say it to any other crowd,
I mean, it's like, can we have a break? We need a whole break.
The thing is, right, Obama, is he playing the game because his film on Netflix, Leave the World Behind, is one of those where, I don't know if you've seen it, but essentially it's the event of what would happen if aliens were to come to the world, etc.
I've got a big thought about that, which is they go, how the fuck are they giving? How the fuck are you being taxed 50-60%? Is what the aliens would say.
It's if the world was being taken over, and then equally now he's saying this, it's like I wonder whose side he's actually on. Is he rooting for the people but inadvertently saying these things?
No. Like Obama is, unfortunately, he's never Trudeau. He's one of these young.
He's not a Trudeau. He's the polished real deal.
He gave us hope.
Like
Obama gave us hope.
Like, everyone can see through Trudeau as an absolute scammy cunt, whereas with Obama, he still comes off as a really genuine person. I mean, you actually listen to what he says.
Yeah, but he's just better at it. That's all it is.
He is, but he is the real deal. He is the one who you got to be wary of.
Yeah, well, if you look at any of his tweets now, like, you say people still believe in him. And look, I listen to some of his speeches and stuff, and even I get like, this guy is a world-class public speaker. He is so good. But look at the comments under every single one of his tweets now. They're all calling him a war criminal, like a WEF puppet. Like the Twitter do not believe the bollocks anymore. You know, there's so many scandals, and obviously the proof's in the pudding, right? He was freaking president for 8 years. All the war. Like, the amount of bombs that got dropped went up. He said he was going to stop them. Inflation went up. Like, everything that was bad continued down the same path that it was going down. And if anything, escalated under his presidency. He did nothing as to what he said he was going to do. He was clearly just a Trojan horse, wrapped up in this hope package. But in reality, it was the same old crony capitalism underneath. And so yeah, him saying stuff like this, he absolutely means it. These are his pay daddies, right? These are the people that pay his bills. It's why he is stupidly rich now. He is kind of come from nothing, and is now one of the richest.
He wasn't even a millionaire when he went into office, was he?
No.
This is, as we say, when we become a head of state, they aren't getting paid then. They're getting paid 10 years down the line. Like Bill Clinton became fabulously rich. Tony Blair became fabulously rich and had, what is it, all these speaker things out in the Middle East and various things where he's getting paid like £1 million a pop.
Yeah, you turn up for 20 minutes and get paid $1 million. It's like, was that speech what you paid for, or was it the decision that you made 8 years ago that made them $1 billion is what you're getting paid for? These are bribes that get paid on a delay system once you're out of office and there's no scrutiny. Anyway, let's move on before I get too triggered about politics. What was the next one? Is it
Jade?
Jade, yeah. So this looks super cool, right? So it's a super click little video, which I might as well show like live on here. So it's trading Bitcoin directly from a hardware wallet, no custodian needed, keep full control of your keys. So they are using liquid Bitcoin and USDT, so that is Tether, while moving between each different asset. So it's worth noting they're not using Bitcoin here, they're using liquid Bitcoin, which is a version of a token of Bitcoin that is available on Blockstream, which is accessible via the Jade, and then also Tether. So what they end up doing is they want to move like $4 from send it through, complete the swap.
So this is just peer-to-peer then, isn't it?
Essentially, yeah. And this is what they're trying to basically go is this is another version, right, of Lightning.
I was going to say that. Yeah.
So they call it LBTC, which is liquid Bitcoin, which is the same as like having Lightning Bitcoin. So this is the Blockstream version of it. And it's just interesting, right? And then obviously there's been a little bit of work done there, but they've linked that up to it's a company called SideSwap. So there's someone there that posted an order. They wanted to buy some Bitcoin. And so you link or you pair your Jade with SideSwap, and essentially they sold some Bitcoin for Tether, and it all happened in seconds for 0 fees, no exchange needed, peer to peer. So obviously, like, because the thing is, we do need to move away from fiat. The second you go in fiat and you take off into dollars or into pounds, into euros, all the regulations come into place, and you need a banking system and all that kind of stuff. If you stay in crypto land, so if you're going to sell your Bitcoin to buy something, you sell into a stable coin, and then maybe you give the stable coin to someone instead of the Bitcoin. Who knows? It's just one of the options. It's one of the use cases. It's one of the theories.
It's a good option. It's a good option. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I'd
just
rather use
Dr. Evil
Tether
10%. Don't get confused. This is LBTC, not LGBT. Okay, just need you to.
Yeah, it's a little bit close, isn't it? Yeah,
it's a bit close. It's a bit close.
But it's a cool proof of concept, right? It's what that's what I call proof of concept. It works, right? I
didn't realize what it was from watching it, because I haven't heard a lot about it. So it's interesting that there's a competitor to Lightning, because but it's good.
Well,
I don't think
it's complementary, isn't it? It's complementary. Well, it's one of those that I guess both will now continue to push each other, and ultimately one will win, which is great.
Because I feel like Lightning's done really well. But it's got where people have been trying to tag on Fedimint onto the top. So can we get that layer where we've actually got that, what do they call it, like the town infrastructure? Because they've done the highways. We got the freight which takes it across the oceans, which is the Bitcoin. Now we've got the motorways and the bypasses around towns, but we need the town infrastructure. And this is what I'm hoping gets built out now, because that's what we're waiting for, Bitcoin to be truly ready for the masses.
Yeah, and we obviously know that the exchanges are being heavily attacked right now, so we need to move to a world where we can have some form of decentralized way of buying and selling Bitcoin peer to peer, and this looks like the early steps towards that, because it's going to be almost a necessity, right?
So this will be on the Isle of MicroStrategy.
Is it still layer 2 then? I take it. Or So fees and stuff like that should be relatively okay then.
The virtually zero, yeah.
It's a classic. We need these iterations as well, don't we? We need to have a version of something. Okay, great. It might not be the easiest or the best, but obviously it works. it immediately reminded me of a pager, and no one uses pagers, but if we didn't have pagers, then we wouldn't have text and tweets and so forth, to eventually move evolution on. So I love it.
It's again, it's almost like the programming. Like obviously at the moment we're all programmed to buy on exchange, send to your hardware wallet. Suddenly using that hardware wallet to almost buy and sell completely off it, using an interface and stuff. It suddenly becomes a case where, well, the hardware wallet you're doing stuff like that on, you do not have your main stack on that, right? So you definitely have two, at least. Ideally, you have 3 or 4, and that one you are just going, oh right, yeah, I need some day-to-day spends. The person over here only accepts Tether or the fiat of choice. So I need to sell they literally sold like $5 worth of Bitcoin there. Got $5 of Tether back all instantly. They have no clue who the buyer and seller was. There was no exchange. There's no KYC, no AML. It just happened. That's powerful, right? It's connecting people because this is the problem in Bitcoin land. We have to rebuild the entire financial system again for it to work. Because the second we play inside their system, we end up having a Bitcoin ETF. That's the land we live in, or we have a Coinbase. And they just get co-opted and get corrupted, and now they're not the thing that we thought they were, right? Now you can't buy Bitcoin on Coinbase if you're not worth like $1 million. And then if you're not worth $1 million, they go, just buy the ETF, and that isn't Bitcoin. So you can't trust that. We're going to have to rebuild the whole financial system again. So fair play to Blockstream Jade for they're having an attempt at it, right? It's and who knows when these types of things, because many people will not try these things until they get blocked from every exchange that they have access to, and they suddenly go, I want to buy some more Bitcoin, and it's like, well, you're going to have to go peer to peer because you've been blocked from every exchange through no fault of your own, just the fact that they know you're a Bitcoiner. So. Yeah, it's good that these type of things are being built, and we need more and more of them. And talking about Bitcoin development, MicroStrategy are doing something, aren't they? So I'll share this.
Indeed.
So we've got MicroStrategy announcing plans to be the first Bitcoin development company, which is interesting because there's plenty of Bitcoin development companies. But yeah, in their latest Q4 earnings call today,
there's extraordinary opportunities to blend artificial intelligence with.
He needs volume up slightly. I don't
I don't want to listen to him. It's like a 2-minute thing. But essentially, you've got a company structure here. So you got the operating company, limited control, but then number 2, ability to develop software. Number 3, generate cash. And number 3, leverage capital markets. And they're basically going, we're not an ETP, we're not an ETF. We're essentially going to be converting, the MicroStrategy business into a Bitcoin company, and they're going to really start trying to innovate. They're still going to be buying, so their bottom one there is just buy shit tons of Bitcoin, right? Number 3 is buy shit tons of Bitcoin. And number 2 is, maybe we'll build some stuff and hopefully build some stuff on Bitcoin, and we'll add value to that network and therefore make money. And then it will fall to 3 and 4, which means buy shit tons more Bitcoin. But it's interesting that Michael say that you think he couldn't be any more all in, and then he pretty much just twists the entire focus of MicroStrategy and says, oh no, we're just a Bitcoin development company now, and we're going to start building on Bitcoin, which it's about fucking time, right? Because I think he came up a couple of weeks ago, and obviously he's the Giga Chad, bought billions of Bitcoin, he's made billions of dollars worth in profit on Bitcoin, and he has done a lot for education and bringing on some probably quite a lot of business people probably look to someone like Michael Saylor for advice and stuff, but he hasn't contributed anything. He hasn't built any Bitcoin products really of note. So it's good that all those billions that he's making, you can employ hundreds of developers to work on this layer 2 stuff, right? This peer-to-peer type Bitcoin stuff that we literally were just talking about. Saylor, get on it. build the third option and go and compete with Liquid and Lightning. Do your MicroStrategy version, and let's see which one wins. Right? Let's do it. So fair play. And he's putting his money where his mouth is. He's going to invest in it, and hopefully he's good on it, and he turns out some good Bitcoin products.
Out of interest, do you think this is the next scam potentially going to come, not from him, but from, the layer 2 is, I think the scam from crypto is done and dusted. I think people will hopefully they're probably wiser. But if you can get the layer 2 stuff, because obviously the developers and the miners and whatnot are not necessarily going to be on like Liquid Bitcoin. What's that backed by? It's not one for one with Bitcoin, is it? So I know you said it's the link with Tether, but
no, the Liquid Bitcoin is backed one to one. It's the same as Lightning, right? They basically
so it is still involved with the same.
They just batch transactions. That all Lightning and Liquid do is they batch transactions.
So that's the same principle then, completely as Lightning.
Yeah.
Okay. Right, I'm with you. Fine. Because I was just wondering if that's the next opening for somebody to get in and somehow siphon away. But obviously, it's not a somebody. Is it? It'd be
Typically, though, the values in there are very small. Granted, however, you could have a large volume of very small transactions.
There'd be lots of volume, wouldn't it? So it'd be,
exactly.
Low
cost, high volume.
Yeah, so I think it may be trying to get something on as a layer 2. So I think everything's a risk.
I guess that's innovation for you, isn't it?
Yeah,
that's the weaknesses. It gets exposed.
Evil 10% as well. Everything is a risk.
Yeah, it's a good call. Like it potentially is a good place to scam, but I think in the shitcoin universe, it's way easier just to create a new set of JPEGs that have fish on them instead of cats and get the dumb money to buy that. Getting the dumb money to buy a different version of a layer 2 protocol on top of Bitcoin doesn't get people excited.
I suppose it's looking at potential scam for when we do have more Bitcoin users, in a number of years. Maybe it's something which will happen. When it is, it's a new payments company, we're going to have Liquid Bitcoin, we're going to have Lightning, maybe we'll have some other things which are in that kind of like Visa network. So what was it, Visa, Maestro were the competitors for that kind of like quick payments. And so it would be, well, what are the ones going forwards on Bitcoin? And it could be a potential scam. But then again, I imagine it'd be too hard to get that wide, that spread that wide.
Yeah, especially with toxic Bitcoin maxi. Like it's very hard to get a scam product past Bitcoin.
Bitcoin. I would say that for all the time that obviously Bitcoin continues to go on, obviously until perhaps the year 2140, there will always be some type of scam that is trying to be conjured up and to be happening. What I was thinking as well, so obviously before we pressed record, and I was talking to Mrs. No Show about this, is how long for those of us that, we've got to Evil 10% and we're going into our second cycle now, how long can people continue to hold off and not, find their moon dependent on price? Because we're undoubtedly going to see lots of volatility happening coming up this year for sure. We've got the halvening, we've got the Bitcoin ETF, obviously, that's just happened. We'll probably see an ETH ETF that's going to happen because Wall Street see an easy opportunity to scam more money out of people that way. And then we've also got the presidential election. But bear with me, we're going to get down to 450 Bitcoin being released each day coming up, obviously from 900. And then we're going to go down to, as I wrote down, 225, 112 and a half, and then 56. And at that point, in 3 cycles time, will we still be there? Because imagine there's going to be 56.25 Bitcoin released. The world's going to be scrambling around each day to try and get that. Where is the price going to be? Even though right now in this cycle, the price could go crazy. So it's it's just an interesting time. But
I mean, technically,
it is able to hold.
It is our third cycle we're entering. It's just the first one was not really in it. Buy me odd shitcoin, which is everyone's typical cycle. It just took us quite a long time to actually come back and look at Bitcoin properly.
Yeah. Yeah, the third cycle. Yeah, you're right. But it'd be interesting to see, you know, where it's going to go, because it is, feel going to be pretty parabolic.
Yeah, it's weird though.
Even at this one.
Yeah, well, it's the amount of access it has, but it's interesting that as the amount of Bitcoin halves, each time pretty much the price of Bitcoin is doubled. So actually, in fiat terms, how much Bitcoin is coming out of the network, it's staying quite consistent, even though the amount of Bitcoin is halving each time. Bitcoin is more than doubled each time the halving happens. Yeah. So, and the only thing that's changing is that the amount of fiat that wants that Bitcoin keeps doubling, right? Because each time, double the amount of people want that Bitcoin, and eventually the entire world wants a tiny fraction of a bit of Bitcoin that's coming out, and that's when we hit Bitcoin hyperinization, isn't it? It's like hyperinization.
Yeah.
And so we move on to the next one. We've got an interesting movie trailer from a guy called Bitcoin Shooter, and I think I play a little like the first little bit of his trailer. It looks super interesting, so I think it's something that is definitely worth supporting.
My grandparents, they could own a house, have a car, 3 kids, and save money for the future on one income. We now need 2 incomes to rent an apartment. This is because of inflation.
It's printed by the central bank in order to give it to the government, and then government spends that money.
Government decided to get into the business of food. We have had a skyrocket in chronic disease.
Will give money to schools with low scores. Insofar as the school improves its education, the money is taken away.
Aid is not help. The fact of the matter is it very rarely reaches the needy. Hospitals would receive compensation for people to die, making all the data generated basically garbage.
The U.S. government is not going to listen to the American people. They're just going to print the money, bomb people overseas, and fund both sides of this war.
If you have someone backing you whenever you do wrong, why would you avoid making mistakes in the future?
They don't care because they keep living their rich life.
Inflation is a major threat, completely out of our control.
There we go. So that looks like a film I want to watch. Just like...
Do we have any rough date on it?
He's raising funding on his website to complete the film, so I don't think there is a date on when it's out yet. But he wants to. So he hasn't finished it. It says help me finish the film, and he's looking for donations. So it's bitcoinshooter.com is the link if you want to donate to him. But it's just like, obviously that's right in the wheelhouse of any Bitcoiner. Like that, the beginning of that, it's not only is why is inflation a problem, and then this goes on to, oh, and by the way, they control the food, they control education, they control healthcare, and all these things are corrupt, right? You know, hospitals paid for when people die, schools get paid when they're bad and get funding removed once they become good. It's just all these things are backwards. They're completely backwards, but that's what happens in fiat land. And you go, is this incompetence or is it conspiracy? Do they want poorly fed, poorly educated, unhealthy people? And do they want that? And that's a conspiracy? Or is this by accident because they're that incompetent that they want all those things to be not true? They want healthy, well-educated, healthy people, but they're just so bad at it that they continue to make the same mistakes. And multiple governments across multiple countries have all done the same things and made all these things worse over the last 100 years, which just coincides with us moving off the gold standard and moving on to a fiat standard. If you think all those things are coincidence and it's incompetence, then don't watch Bitcoin.
I thought inflation was down to population growth. Didn't we talk about this last week?
Just giving the people what they need. But
yeah, I love the line in this. I think it's towards the end. It says, "Every money dies. It just needs time."
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't appreciate. Oh, money's always been like this. It hasn't. It's 50 years.
Well, weirdly, it has. It's just that by saying that Bitcoin's always money's always been like this, you're admitting that Bitcoin always dies. So you're like, oh right, so your money always dies. So yes,
yeah, but
this
people
money
think
will
that,
die. It will
yeah, but
hyperinflate
people
and die and
think
be replaced
fiat
by a stronger money.
People think that fiat money has always been the standard.
Yeah, I know. Yeah,
They don't realize that there's been gold standard.
they think
gold.
cavemen were walking around with dollars. No.
Yeah. And that back in the day that income tax paid for roads, and it wasn't local corporations who wanted better shipping routes. Strange.
Well, yeah.
Right.
We
next
are
one's
on
mine.
to, yeah.
Yes,
this
an
one's
email.
An interesting one. Yeah.
This is what I mean about the whole peer-to-peer stuff and exchanges becoming potentially hostile, especially in the UK, right? So this is an email that I've received off Kraken. Basically, this telling me that the regulations in the UK require that we maintain up-to-date information about our clients, blah blah blah. And so what they want is please reply to this email and answer the following questions. Please confirm that you own or in control of the self-custodial wallets that you are sending and receiving from. If you do not own or control the self-custodial wallets that you are sending and receiving from, please detail which addresses these are, who the owner or controller is, and provide their residential address. And if I didn't respond by February 23rd, then they would lock my account and stop me from buying any more Bitcoin. So obviously, I responded to this in the replies. I was just kind of messing about, going, "Oh yeah, so I don't have ownership, and it's Mike from Kenya who owned the wallet. Good luck tracking him down."
It's an attempt to build up a network and understanding of all the different ledgers, isn't it? Who owns what? That's literally what they want. So the kind of recommendation is you're going to have to tell them that you own one of them. So you say, "This is mine," but then all the others, you transfer to the others off the one which you send to.
Yeah.
Surely AML tells you if they just need to go to Ledgers Direct or whatever provider and go give us all your list of customers. They leaked them once, didn't they? So just do their inquiry.
Yeah, well, they don't know.
Do they have them attached to addresses?
No, they shouldn't.
Should do.
They shouldn't. They shouldn't be, but who knows? But it's complicated, right? So I think what they're building this up for is the tax evasion court cases. So this is the whole, oh, I lost it in a boating accident, or I sent it all to my mate. So once I send the Bitcoin that I had off the exchange, and then let's say I start trading in Bitcoin, right? I start buying houses, cars, and live day to day on a Bitcoin standard. They're all transactions that they want taxation from. And
they want to understand the source, don't they, of where the money actually came from. And if obviously you take it off, but it's too late, isn't it?
Yeah, it's gone. So what they want is me to say in writing that the wallet that I've sent it to is under my control. Therefore, all transactions from that wallet to like the next wallet. I'm not sure that's the next question, right? They're going to go, this wallet is interactive with these wallets. Do you own them as well? They want me to write in writing that I own these wallets. Therefore, I am liable for the movement of those coins, and therefore every movement of a coin is a taxable event that I have to pay them 20% on. So I think what they're doing is just getting the groundwork done, because they probably already realized that once it's off the exchange, like plausible deniability, the whole I lost it in a boating accident type thing. By replying to this, I lose the right to say I lost it in a boating accident, because if I have control of that wallet and I say, oh, I've lost control of those keys, I lost it in a boating accident, but then transactions keep happening, they go, that's you. No, that's you. You didn't lose it in a boating accident. You clearly have access to these coins. They went here, they went there. So, but what's scary about this is that not many people have had these emails.
The movers.
It seems to be relatively high net worth people. I've only seen a few people on Bitcoin Twitter have it.
Just the trillionaires, I've heard.
Exactly. You beat me to it. You beat me to it, young MBA. Yeah.
It's worrying though. It's worrying for me. I
is.
showed this to the missus and just went, you know what I was talking about how there's probably going to be a knock on the door one day, and they're going to come audit everything, and they're going to try and find some dirt on me because I've just got a black mark on my name, and they would rather I was not a problem, even though I'm not necessarily a problem to them. I might be in the future, so they'd rather just have me under some type of sanction or criminal offense somewhere. So they just come and hunt for something, and tax evasion is the classic. So let's just go through all that and see if they can get me on something. I think the knock on the door will probably happen, and I've done all I can to be whiter than white. So I think even if they uncovered everything, I'd still pass their tests.
But you know they'll find something if they want to find something.
And that's the terrifying thing.
Yeah. You know, they will put something down on your record of how you cheated on your GCSEs 20 years ago. And
to be fair, he did as well. He wrote on his calendar, his calculator.
Yeah. So
and in my French diary.
And in your French diary, yeah. So never look. On to your point that you were raising before, I was waiting for this point to bring it back in. When is your moon? So I don't think it's necessarily when the price is right. I think it's when you shit yourself enough just to get out. Because that letter that I saw on Twitter from you, I assumed it was someone else's. I didn't realize it was yours until I went to yours the other day. That's quite scary. And is it about tax? Well, that's what you're assuming. It could be the whole, we're going to be asking you to give us it all next. What do you do then? And if the 1933 repeat happens, where it's a prison sentence, or in 1933 it's a 10 grand fine, what's that now in today's money? It'd be 10 million. Like that's you sell and just pay your tax.
Well, it was a fine and 10 years in prison.
Yeah, or both, wasn't it?
Yeah, both.
Yeah, it's incredible. So going more to the point is, we've all got other halves. We've all got very vulnerable, like, dependents. There may be a time where people just go, you know what, I've made a boatload of fiat now. Let's just go back into that and just
do that,
give up the fight.
When I try and go to another country.
Well, that's kind of what we went into as well. That's your option. But then that's a big old decision based on an email that's saying...
Yeah, but when you start to go down that avenue, you know it's not just... It's going down the avenue, we are going towards, like, authoritarian rule now. There's no coming back. It's going to be like fucking China. And
it'd just be financial conduct.
I suppose you could sell a little bit, leave it for the family to help them get through the time whilst you're away and you're sitting on your hands in prison for 10 years to come back out a multi-billionaire.
Imagine that's the ultimate hodl, isn't it?
Yeah, there's an ultimate hodl.
I can't sell when it goes to a milli.
Exactly, like literally then, whatever the price is, because you would be tempted in the outside world, whereas in there, it's just like, well, actually, I can't sell. You know, people, I'm sure, out there, you know, that have like stolen billions and jillions, and it's just like, well, I'll just come back out to it.
Yeah, but they'll come up with a reason to keep you in. You're a danger to the outside. So I think it's not 10 years. It's
well, me and all the other thousands of Bitcoiners, and we'll have a little orange pill party every...
It'd be the free citadel.
Yeah, exactly.
Just imagine, though. Yeah, I'll tell you, imagine there'd be so many people escape from that place, because you're going to get the brain power of the best. The top 1% are going to be in a confined space, talking each day, every day. You'd have to be in isolation in padded cells. That's the only way for safety.
The problem is, it's terrifying, right? Because I know I'm on the freaking blacklist, right? And I don't think the average pleb isn't gonna get attacked first. I think what I've realized is that they are coming for the higher profile.
Well, they're making an example out of you. Yeah. They're making an example out of you.
And there's no one would have any sympathy with me, right? If they drag me over the coals for some type of tax evasion, or I don't know what they would get me on, right?
Look at the post office scandal, right? We all believed in the post office was whiter than white, and that was corrupt as hell. So it would just spin a story on it.
Yeah, and they go and drag a load of my tweets out, like talking out about the government, against the pandemic, against the Ukraine war. They pitch me as a right-wing, extreme, racist, Nazi kind of person, and no one would have a single shred of sympathy for me. And
I'm just thinking of all those posts of absolutely no.
Mr. All In, is this the time though to go off grid for yourself? So could you not like remove yourself from all the exchanges, get maybe somebody that may be quite close to you to become the exchange ID? They are a newbie because like I was only talking last night when I was
to
moving.
like stack big though and sell big through someone else's that doesn't have.
But no, you wouldn't necessarily. You don't necessarily need to sell big right now, do you? You're going to be sat pretty for now because all your big sales will go off the radar. You're just basically gone.
Yeah. I should not do
You're
podcasts.
Jordan Belfort on the boat.
Yeah. In reality, I should probably delete my Twitter and stop doing podcasts. That's probably what I should do.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is a very interesting way. And we were talking last night again on native SegWit and stuff like that. That's on the early birds' ledgers because of the time you've been on it. Fees are slightly more expensive because of it, but also it's a bit of a signal to how many cycles you've gone through. So you could literally, if they can get to the level of detail to work out what the
they know anyway. Like, I've literally done tax returns. Like obviously my original buys were on Coinbase. Coinbase were like then even like not assuming they're bought asset by the US government. They're a financial institution which give the name and addresses and all transactions to their respective governments. So they know exactly what Bitcoin I have. Like there's no hiding that. It's just the only way that you run from that knowledge is to go to a jurisdiction where they don't have power to imprison you. And that is
you got your top 5 ready.
It's running to El Salvador. Yeah, it's
It's
grabbing your Jade and your ledgers, shoving them in a bag and fucking getting out of here. That's what it
Buenos
is.
dias, senor. Yeah. You know,
don't send me a postcard. I don't want to be associated to you. The best thing is though, like I said, I had been very naughty and I'd been listening to your pods talking about who would leave sizable chunks of money on hot wallets on Coinbase. I was one. I've been DCAing for months and it's grown. It was a bit too big. And I was like, first thing, I didn't want to pay the fee for the little chest transaction. And I talked myself round to that. £7. I was like, £7. I was like, hold on a minute. How much has it made in the last day? So anyway, went through that bit. And then there was just, when I did the transaction, Coinbase then told me, when you clicked on the blockchain, it actually told you how much Coinbase thinks you have on that address. And I was like, it's massively wrong. But then we deciphered why it's wrong for this is because I had another custodian initially for all my stock before I took myself. But it knows it already and it's already badged that together. I guess it's not that impossible to work out, but straight away that data is known at a drop of a hat by these exchanges.
Yeah.
So it's not as simple as them having to go through and finding the address. Or it's just Coinbase, how many addresses this got? And it showed you straight away, you've got X. Like, wow. I was quite surprised it was as tight as that. So it absolutely knows everything about you.
Well, police surveillance state, we're all fucked. We're going to prison. We're eating prison food and penis.
And they'll probably pay rent when you get out. Like that guy that got done for whatever it was, rape, and he was in for 10 years. And then when he came out, they're like, because it wasn't a fair conviction, you basically been there unlawfully. So he was asked to pay it all back, wasn't he?
No, I think he's found not guilty of a murder. There's been various ones over like, we're going to give you £1 million for this 20 years, which you spent your life in prison.
That's it. But you owe 2 million.
But we're going to take off 300 grand for lodgings. And it's just like,
what?
I lived in a prison cell, eating prison food, being locked down, allowed exercise for 1 hour a day, but I was allowed a lot of cock. And you're charging me 300 grand for those 20 years.
They changed the law in the back of that
is
that ruled in. Yeah, that was not that long ago.
Maybe charged him for rent in the prison. That is amazing.
That's what they do in the UK. In the US, they give them like 50 million or something when it's a proper and lawful conviction.
Oh, yeah, they UK, it's like $1 million a year.
If in the UK, it's like you spent 20 years, your best years in your life in prison, 1 million minus your rent.
With tax on your excess capital gain.
That's hilarious to have the balls to charge you for what you cost in prison when you should never have been. Oh my
So they've got
god.
all the stuff about the post office, and I just said, it should be millions because they've absolutely ruined them. But it'll be like 200 grand or something. So it'll be on their earnings alone, and the the money which they could have saved in those years rather than living in prison.
Shocking.
Wow. Should we move on to the last story?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a classic, and I've already shared this with some friends as well. So Elon Musk acquired Twitter for 44 billion, but if he'd bought Bitcoin instead, he would now have 94 billion. So a 50 billion plus increase from when he bought it. And are we thinking what, only a year ago now? It couldn't have been much more.
No.
In terms of his.
If you say Twitter was worth 44 billion, then I think when he bought it just before, he had it valued and it actually came out nearer 34 billion, and he tried to pull out of the deal unless they agreed to 34, and then they sued him and went, no, you've said you're going to buy it for 44, you buy it for 40, because all the bot accounts and all that stuff, there's basically $10 billion worth of bot accounts that obviously are valued at zero. They're just spam, right? But, so you could even argue it's not even 50 billion he lost out on, it's 60 because he had to spend 10 billion on the bot accounts that were valued at zero.
So he completed the acquisition of Twitter in October 2022, but then it wasn't completed until June 23, and then he rebranded it X in July of 2023. So from this post, we then go through a number of various different items which the everyday person may have bought.
Mrs. No Show.
And Mrs. No Show. And then kind of compare it to, well, if you'd have bought this, or if you'd have bought Bitcoin at the time, this is what you would have had. So for listeners, audio listeners, and people, because I don't know if you've not brought it up on screen, but essentially the iPad mini release date, November 2nd, 2012, cost $329, which would have bought you just under 110 Bitcoin, which would now be $4.6 million. So your $329 purchase would now be 4.6 million, just over 12 years. Again, goes back to the point of being able to hold on for another 3 halvenings after this one coming up. The iPhone 5, $749, would now be $250,000. The Yeezys, I know there are people out there, I love trainers, didn't ever buy any Yeezys, not my thing, but $400 on trainers would now be $68,000. Like, wow. You're walking around in those things that have now got holes in, unless you kept it in pristine condition, kept them in the box, because they will have rose in value for sure. Interestingly enough, Kanye did his own advert, let's say, through the Super Bowl just gone, and kind of put $20 million extra on the sale of Yeezys just through doing a $0 cost advert by tweeting on his phone. He just kind of made it up on the spot instead of actually paying for an advert during the Super Bowl, which I thought was pretty cool. So then the next one we've got is one for Mrs. No Show, which really did make me laugh. So the tall Starbucks latte, $4.95, which would have bought you 16.51 BTC, would now be $708,000. So a single coffee in 2011. $708,000. Wow. Sip on that, Mrs. No Show. The Amazon Echo, I'm sure there's lots of them dotted around the house. hopefully you got the joke there. And $99 back in the day now would be 13,000. So a lot there. And we've got two more. The pressure cooker, the instant pressure cooker. If you'd bought one in October,
pressure cooker though.
I know.
Bitcoin isn't gonna cook your stew.
But for $100, if you'd have bought somehow, because again, it was kind of difficult, well, not kind of difficult, it was difficult in 2010 to have bought Bitcoin, but you would have accumulated 476 Bitcoin. That would now be $20.4 million. So your pressure cooker versus 20 million.
You could get a lot of big titty bitches just to sit on your stew and pressure it.
Absolutely. And the Google Glass was released on May 14th, 2014, cost $1,500, which would have been 3.36 Bitcoin, would now be $148,000.
Yeah.
You know, there are so many things that are happening and coming out right now. We talked about Meta versus Apple and their headsets, and people will be buying those. Now, granted, you know that you would get a lot less Bitcoin, but I think it's all relative, because in the years to come, 8, 10, 15, whatever you pay for it, it's gonna double, and you're gonna regret that trade.
The key takeaway really is like if you're still building your stack, and if you look at Bitcoin being 3, 4, 500K, if the amount of Bitcoin you have doesn't allow you the escape route at that point, if that price isn't enough to kind of get out of your fiat life and potentially set up somewhere else, then you need to really consider your day-to-day purchases on items such as this, and try and buy the cheaper versions, because the priority should be stacking. Yeah. I don't know how many different canaries in the coal mine we need to see. You know, like emails to me, like the CBDC stuff, the share price plummets, the tax increases, the ETF. Like, you couldn't have more bullish data points for Bitcoin and more bearish points for fiat that's happening right now. And if you're not stacking your Bitcoin, then you're going to seriously regret that in the future. And we're going to have a thread like this that will have the, like you said, like the new Apple glasses Pro, whatever they are, 2024, cost 4K. It's now 2034. You could have bought this private island, and and just don't be that person, right? Obviously buy things if you can afford them, and you want to like splash out. Like, obviously life is worth living, like, so buy some shit if you want to buy some shit. But if you don't have that stock of Bitcoin already stacked, like, seriously, try and get it, because otherwise Jesus Christ. I look at these things, and there's a number of these that really sting. Like, there's hundreds of millions that I've left on the table just looking at this, like, based on some of the purchases that I have done over the last 20 years.
You bought so many pressure cookers, that was it.
Admittedly, I dodged that fiat bullet. I never bought a pressure cooker in my fucking life. But I bought nearly everything else on there, and man, the amount of Bitcoin I could have had instead, it kind of hurts. But you get the amount of Bitcoin you deserve, so just start deserving it. Buy it now.
But I haven't got any spare money. That's what everyone says, isn't it?
Yeah.
Whenever I talk to people,
you're buying that fiat shit, aren't you?
That's well, exactly. I was like, everyone's got. I don't care who you are. You got 10 quid. You got 20 quid to start, and then once you start, you carry on. And I've tried to have that conversation. I give up. I've given up with people because they're like, I ain't got it. Cost of living. You're like, okay.
Once you kind of get to the mindset of like, you can't afford not to, right?
The risk is not.
And literally, if you're about, well, that means it's like the analogy of the Titanic again, isn't it? Where you just go, I'm on the Titanic, and someone says it's sinking, right? but I want to enjoy my holiday. You go, it's sinking. You need to jump off. Like, no matter what you're leaving behind, no matter what you have to sacrifice, if you don't jump off, you die and you lose everything, right? And that's kind of what we're saying, the fiat system, which is, yeah, I know you've got a lot of day-to-day spends, a lot of day-to-day commitments, but they are all not going to go to anything at the end. Like they are all like all these fiat items aren't going to be worth anything in the end. Like all these savings, the pensions you've got, if you've got any shares, like congratulations. But if you don't have any Bitcoin, you're literally going to, your net value, your net worth is going to be zero. Everything is going to be taken from you. Even the house that you live in. Oh, you think you own it? What land's it on? It's owned by the government, right? So they can put the council tax up to 100 grand a month. Can you pay it? No, right? The house is theirs. So everything can be taken from you.
So having a nice ending to the show here, putting everyone into the depressive. You'll own nothing, but you will be happy.
I was just thinking,
and this is a conspiracy theory. We did not say that. A short film and narrative was not recorded. It was not displayed at the WEF meeting. It is complete and utter conspiracy by these right-handed Nazis. Even though we hosted that video on our website and recently took it down.
Yeah, exactly.
I was just thinking of the analogy of the Titanic, though. Like, I think in 2017 there was a little hole in the Titanic and a very rickety little paddle boat to get away with a massive wave coming, because it was dodgy buying in those days with Estonia and stuff like that. Now it's like you're in a better boat when you're jumping off it. The Titanic's a massive hole in the side, you can see it, and the boat you're jumping is quite good, but you can see some pirates with some guns in front of you. So that's the next challenge. You actually getting Bitcoin, securing Bitcoin is a hell of a lot easier than it ever was. So the risk of that bit is, but now it's the external influence. It's not just massive waves, it's people actually shooting your boat. That's why I feel like it's just moved on to with regards to what you were saying about that letter. And that's the government sat there.
This is perfect. Joe Biden's account, freaking, what was it? Yesterday.
Laser eyes.
Just like we drew it up. And I picture him with laser eyes, which they're not Bitcoin laser eyes. I don't know what kind of laser eyes these are.
He's Superman.
Yeah.
Because they're going out to the side as opposed to direct, or
it's just, this is the most powerful person on the planet, right? Clearly he didn't tweet this. This went through 30 layers of approval.
The most powerful man, you mean the most powerful image, because he's never had the power.
He's got floating hands. Have you seen that?
But this is, I think, just a representation of, are these the people you trust? Like, this went through 30 layers of approval, right? Like, obviously we know Joe Biden's never tweeted in his life. This is a very carefully PR'd Twitter account. He tweet like, this looks demonic. Just like we drew it up. Like, what I don't know what this message is. I'm even trying to figure out, again, the Steelman version of what is this? I know it was around Super Bowl time. Is he pleased that they won the Super Bowl? But is this the image that you post when your team wins the Super Bowl? But this is demonic, right? This is them laughing at the people, just going, we're fucking you in the ass, and you don't know it, and you're saying thank you, and we're laughing in your face. But
it's a good lad.
He's a good lad. He's a great lad.
He's a great lad. He's a great lad.
Great lad to have in the dressing room.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
He's long in the shower.
Yeah.
Man, it's a crazy world you live in, right? Crazy.
Absolutely, it's hot right now, and it's only going to get crazier.
Thank God we have Bitcoin. That's what I say. Like, that's always, Bitcoin is hope, right? It literally, fuck Obama, that we're taking the hope word back. Bitcoin is hope. It's the only thing that keeps me going these days, to go, Jesus Christ. At least when these fuckers come for me, Bitcoin is hope. Bitcoin is my escape route. Bitcoin is my life raft off this country. If it happens again, it's my escape raft after that, off that country. Without Bitcoin, Jesus Christ, you just have to concede, don't you? You have to comply. There's nowhere to go. because you're just going to go from one authoritarian regime to another. There's nowhere to go. So at least,
but it's amazing though, isn't it? We're saying that, and I know Dr. Evil 10% and we've had many conversations where we're like in panic mode before any of this happened, haven't we? Where we've been talking about, like, what are we going to do, where are we going to invest the money, and obviously we landed on Bitcoin, and then we're learning about it. But there's so many people that are out there that are not listening to this pod, any other pod, or reading any book of any substance with regards to money or Bitcoin.
Too busy and doom scrolling.
There you go. And so yeah, I think it's going to be some hard times and hard lessons for some people, but thank God we do have some hope. All right, I'm going to take us out. Young MBA, it's really good to see you, and thank you once again for joining us on Pod 131. This has been brought to you by your good self, Mr. All In, aka the $1 Trillion Man, Dr. Evil 10%, aka the People's Champ, myself, So Never Look, aka the Excellence of Execution, and surprise, surprise, Mrs. No Show was still no show. Peace.